Today I'm going to be showing you how to make some pendulum earrings. Hi, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Carol, and on this channel I show you how easy it is to make your own jewellery. These earrings don't take much in terms of materials, but there are some specialised tools that you'll need if you are going to make them. So let's take a look at the tools and the materials that you'll need, and then I'll walk you step by step through the process of making them. So the materials that I've got in front of me are 2 head pins. These ones are 5 centimetres long. I've got 2 8x6 glass faceted rondelles, really sparkly in a beautiful purple colour. I have 2 ear hooks, and I've got some 20 gauge wire, and that's all the materials you need. As far as tools are concerned, you will need a pair of round nose pliers, a pair of flush cutters, 2 pairs of chain nose pliers, and the specialised tools I was talking about is a pair of nylon jawed pliers. Now if you haven't used these before, they're fabulous for straightening wire, also for squeezing things that you don't want to get plier marks on or damage the wire. I'm also going to be using 2 pens. Now the reason I'm using 2 pens is simply because I'm using this one for the shape, and I'm using this one for its nice sharp point. I'm also going to be using a ruler. So let's get started. Alright, the first thing I'm going to do is cut some wire. Now I have my ruler laid out here, and I'm going to take my wire off the roll. You need a fair bit, probably about 32 centimetres for the 2 earrings. Now before I take it off the roll, I'm going to take my nylon jawed pliers and I'm going to straighten it. The reason I'm doing it this way before I take it off the roll is just because it's easier to do on. It gives you something to hang on to. So just getting any major kinks out of it. Now don't worry too much about the fact that it's still pretty bendy. It'll be fine. Really what you're aiming for is to have it straight enough so that you can cut it. So I'm taking my wire. Before I do that, I need to cut off the end. When you use your flush cutters, so if you take a close look at them, this side has a V-shaped cut, gives you a V-shaped cut, and this side gives you a flat cut. So when I say cut the wire with the flat side of your cutters, I'm meaning this side. So when you cut a piece of wire, you'll get one side of the cut is flat and one side is V-shaped. So my wire here has a V-shaped cut in it, or a point. So what I'm going to do is take the flush side of my cutters, and I'm just going to cut off just the mere tip of that point. And I'm going to cover it with my finger so that it doesn't fly away. Because believe me, if you get a little shard of wire like this in your foot, it is not nice. And I'm just going to put it over there. Nope. Where did it go? Lost it. Alright, I'm going to lay my wire down on my ruler, or next to my ruler, and I'm going to take my cutters and I'm going to hold them in this weird way. So I've got the flush side facing the 0 of the measurement, and I'm going to put my cutters, the point of my cutters, down on that 4 centimetre mark and cut. So then what I've got is a piece of wire with 2 flat ends. And I'm going to repeat that until I have 8 cuts of wire. So just trimming off the end again and cutting the next one. The reason I'm cutting 8 now is because I want both my earrings to be exactly the same. So I'm cutting them both at the same time. Now I have my 8 pieces of wire. I want to make sure that exactly the same length. Now I did pretty well when I cut them, but I'm just going to double check that none of them are slightly longer. And I'm going to just do that by, my mat's a bit bouncy, so I'm going to put them on my ruler here and just make sure they're exactly the same length. So you can see there, I've got a couple of little discrepancies. So I'm going to just trim off my wire to make it the same size. Now, it's kind of best if you do it 1 at a time or 2 at a time. That's 2 down, and just recheck every time you cut to make sure that you're on track. So now I have my 8 pieces of wire and they're the same length. Next, I'm going to make some loops in the ends of these wires. So I'm going to take 2 pieces and I'm going to make some P-loops. So taking my round nose pliers. Now the reason I wanted my my fine tip marker is I want to make some marks on my pliers because I want all of my loops to be exactly the same size. Now I could scratch it on with a piece of wire if I wanted to, but then I'd be stuck with it for a while. So what I'm going to do is estimate that I want my loops to be about that size, and I'm going to mark it with my pen here. Now I know that if I put my wire in the jaws at that mark, then all the loops will be the same size. So I'm going to do exactly that, just putting my wire in the jaws of the pliers and making a P loop rather than a round centered loop. And if you haven't made loops before, I have a video all about making basic loops, so I will link that in the description below. So just twisting my hand around, and there's my P loop. Now I want another one exactly the same. So now I'm going to take these 2 pieces with the P loops and I'm going to make a centered loop in the other end. Now I do want it to be quite a small loop again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a loop just like before, the same size, and make sure it's closed, just like that. And then I'm going to take my pliers, and this may seem like a strange way to do it, but it does work. And I'm going to hold the loop like that so that the wire is coming off on an angle like that. Then I'm going to take my thumbnail, holding this really tight, and I'm going to, so the bottom of the loop is right at the side of the pliers there. And I'm going to bend that back. And I'm going to repeat that to get another one on the other piece. So there's my piece there with my P-loop on one side and my centered loop on the other. Now what I want to do is make sure they're both going the same way. So I'm going to take my 2 pairs of chain nose pliers. Now the opening for this loop is facing me, and the opening for my P-loop is facing the camera the other way. So I'm going to twist it right around. So now they're both facing the same way. And I need to repeat that with this one. Actually, this one's fine. It's facing the right way. So next, I'm going to make the bottom part. So to do that, I'm going to make 2 more P-loops, exactly the same, in the same size. And I want these ones facing the same way as well. But if I don't get them facing exactly the same way, I can adjust them, just like I did before. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to shape this around my Sharpie. So I'm going to take my Sharpie and I'm going to measure, kind of lay the piece of wire, the center of the piece of wire over the Sharpie, and I'm just going to press it around until I get the shape I desire. Now if you press the little loops down, it's okay, you can rebend them back into the right shape, facing the right way, which I have, so I will just move that one back. So you want the loops facing out, and you can see there it's not quite the right shape, so I'm going to fiddle with it a little bit more. You just kind of use them as handles. Okay, there's my little, it's kind of a horseshoe shape. And if you find that you need to, you can always just give it a little bit of a bend with your fingers without the pen. So there's my loop, and I want to make another one exactly the same. Now the trickiest part of this project is actually getting these exactly the same shape. Now they don't need to be perfect, but you do want them to be kind of similar in shape. So I'm just going to play with them a little bit, and I can see that one needs to go in a little bit until they are close to being the same size and shape. Okay, so there's my two little bottom pieces. I'm just going to put one aside for now because I don't need it right now. It's just good to make it before you put it in the earring so that you can make sure it's the right size and the right shape. All right, I'm just going to put all of that aside, and now what I'm going to do is make up the dangle part, or the pendulum of this earring. So I'm going to thread on my, no, before I do that, I'm going to measure my pendulum or my head pin, and I want it to be about 3 centimeters. Exactly the same process as before, except this time you're cutting it 3 centimeters, not 4. This time I'm going to make my loop slightly bigger, not much, but just slightly. And it doesn't matter if you could use it as a P loop or a centered loop, it doesn't matter, but I am going to put my bead on first. Not much bigger, just a little bit bigger. Just allows it to move a little more freely. Okay, so I've made mine as a P loop, and that's what I have. Now it's a matter of putting it all together. No, we have one step first. Okay, next what I'm going to do is take another piece of my wire, and I'm going to make a loop about 2/3 of the way down. So to do that, I'm going to put my pliers about 2/3, about 1/3 from the top. And I'm going to just bend the wire over the pliers to a right angle, like that. Now I'm going to take my round nose pliers and I'm going to make a big loop. So I'm bringing it right up close to the top of my pliers here. It's just the same process, it's just done further up the pliers. So just going around and adjusting. Basically what you want it to look like is a big jump ring, or about a 6mm. And sometimes when you make these big loops, you actually need to bring your pliers down to the bottom just to give it that little last close. So that's what I have. Now I'm going to put on another bead. And I'm going to bend the wire over at the top, just putting my thumbnail on top of the bead and bending the wire over my thumbnail to a nice right angle. I'm going to trim the wire to about 1 centimeter from the bend. And I'm just going to make a standard sized loop, which is usually about a 2.25mm loop, which is, I know that because that's the size my one-step looper does, and so I quite like that size. If you don't know what a one-step looper is, I will leave a card up the top for a video I did about it. Believe me, it changed my life when I got one, because when I was first learning to make jewellery, I really struggled with making loops the same size. So the one-step looper really helped me out there. And I'm just making sure that my loops are going the same way, and I just need that to give that one a little bit of an adjustment because it's not quite centered. There we go. It's the one thing I love about wire is you can always adjust it. So that's what I have now. So I've got a smaller loop on one end and a larger loop on the other. So now I'm going to put it together. I'm going to open that large loop. So I'm holding the wire, the bead, in between my thumb and my forefinger, and I'm pushing down with my pliers. Now I'm going to feed on the centered part of this, the centered loops. and I want to make sure that they all go on the same way. So if I have the opening towards me for that one, I need the opening towards me for this one, and the same for this one. And now I'm going to close up that loop. So they should all hang nicely. There we go. So that's what I have. So with all three hanging nicely on that. Now I'm going to put the bottom part on. So I'm going to open this loop. Now you may need to adjust the direction of these loops to make it sit properly. And I'm going to pop on that. Oh, I didn't open it far enough. That little loop that I made, or the little horseshoe shape that I made before, and close it up. And just let it hang a minute so you can see where you're at, and bring it around and put it on the other side as well. So opening up that loop. When you open these, you need to support them really well so that you don't bend them. And closing it. All right. So there you go. There's my pendulum earring. And because we've made sure that our loops are going all the same way in the beginning, they are now. So that means I don't need to adjust anything, and that it all sits nicely. So now all that's left to do is attach my ear wire. So just grabbing that, opening the loop on the ear wire, and popping on the earring. And there it is. Now I just have to make another one. Now I've got a great pair of pendulum earrings. If you enjoyed this video, it would be really cool if you would give me a little thumbs up, and also consider subscribing. Also check us out on Facebook and Instagram, and sign up for our weekly newsletters on our website as well. That way you'll never miss a thing. Thank you so much for watching today. I'll see you again soon.